Today we have another special guest. Mr. William is in the house. Uh,
So,
Tell us, Will, how would you introduce yourself? What would you say? You had to
how would I
describe.
introduce myself? Well, I would say I've been in the high ticket online sales space for the last 8 years, closed a lot of deals and learned a lot of things along the way. Probably picked up a bit of a track record for becoming good at follow up and reactivation, mainly because I worked on a real estate offer where they were pretty hard to hunt down. And so, like, my frontline close rate was around 20%, my annual close rate was around 60%. So I was pulling about 40% more deals through follow up and different types of systems. And now I've taken those systems and realized a lot of businesses don't have CRM infrastructure, automation, and data analytics set up properly. So now we are kind of thriving that forward into different business models.
Nice stuff, nice stuff. And tell me, like, how did everything, go from the start? Like, how did you start in this industry?
I mean, I was sick at home one day and watched a webinar. That's how I guess the amusing part happened. Is I was working in a gym as a personal trainer, so I was kind of doing some sales for myself and selling fitness packages in the gym, but also still servicing all the sessions. But unfortunately, I had some health issues and I had lost my voice, so that totally took me out of commission. So I was at home watching kind of this webinar. I was like, oh, like you can improve your sales skills, and I was like, well, that's probably a valuable thing to do. And then I started to see opportunities like, oh my God, you can talk to people on the phone and make over like 10K a month. Like, to me, at the time I was making about 3,000 Canadian a month. So like it was almost too good to be true. But I decided, I was like, hey, I like talking to people, so might as well figure out how to go all in and see what happens. And within a few months started to figure out a couple different things and learn the skill, and then got some fun opportunities that where I essentially started making more part-time online than I was at the gym full-time, working 60 hours a week, at which point I was like, you know what, let's see how far we can take this, and I can always go back to the gym if it doesn't work out. And lo and behold, it kind of led to a variety of cool doors opening for me and experiences that I probably couldn't have imagined, but stoked and blessed to be here now.
Nice. And tell me, like, what was your aha moment, like when you knew the sales was your thing?
Yeah, like I've got a degree in psychology and I've always liked people, and I imagine like a lot of us, like big on personal development to a degree. But I think when it was probably actually shortly after I took like a skill course and then got my first opportunity, where I realized that there was like, it was almost like the thrill of the hunt a little bit. Like we were given a list of 50 leads, and these leads had bought like a book. And by bought a book, I mean they paid for shipping and handling, so $9.95. And we were to give them a call and attempt to sell them into a $2,500 3-month program. And I was like, okay, I guess because I didn't know what I didn't know, I just went at it and decided to have conversations with these people. And they weren't even expecting my call. But what I realized is like there was this really fun dynamic being one-on-one with another person, either over the phone or over the Zoom, where it's like you could really just like, it wasn't like a counseling session, but you could really get into someone's head in a positive way, like actually serve them and coach them. And I kind of started to realize that that was a lot of fun because it was allowing me to show up as my genuine self. And if I could actually help that person get to somewhere where they wanted to go, then I started to realize, I was like, oh, this is like very empowering feeling. And the gift of gab actually like could be used to serve a lot of people. And so at that point I realized, I was like, oh cool, when I could apply all my skill sets and help someone, that put me in like this little flow state that just kind of kept snowballing. And then I chased bigger and better opportunities.
Nice. And what were some of your early challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Hmm. I mean, I would say like the easiest easiest one to point out, the hardest one to overcome, is that sales and a lot of this is a mirror, right? And so you're like, oh, like you start to realize you were confident closing either certain types of individuals or personalities, but then other things either would trigger you or you would get flustered or something, and then you realize that really it's just a head game and there's probably a belief system that you need to actually understand and tackle yourself before you can help someone overcome it. Which then, so like once you started to realize that was the case, then it became like a thirst for knowledge. It's like, if I could figure out these things myself, then I could literally turn around the next day and help someone else with the same fear, mindset, objection, kind of limitation, right? And so I think that's hard because it really forced you to develop a lot of self-awareness, um, as well as also managing your emotional state between phone calls, because like not all of them go the way we want them to, but if you're able to kind of reset, refresh, and think, then you can kind of like keep chugging along, right? And I pulled a lot of my like sports background into sales and business because it requires you to kind of stay in the game. Whatever happened a few minutes ago happened a few minutes ago. You have to keep surging forward, I guess, in that sense.
And was there a mentor or a figure who really impacted your growth in sales?
I mean, there are definitely been people that have been influenced and mentored me over the years, for sure. I think sometimes I've had issues with the word mentor because, you know, sometimes it has been warped into what that really means. However, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to get where I got without kind of different types of people guiding me. I would say, like, you know, through the beginning, my involvement with Sales Sniper a lot kind of exposed me to a lot of different high level salespeople. Like Matt was one of them, in the sense that I was doing pretty good in the circle that I was in, closing at like 20, 30%, and thinking that was pretty good because people were telling me it was good and I didn't know any different. And to me, I thought that was funny because 8 out of 10 people were telling me no and I was still making good money. So I was like, this is a good relationship. And then I remember meeting Matt and he's like, oh, what's your close rate? I'm like, oh, this. And I was like proud of it. And he's like, only 25. And I was like, oh shit, people can go higher than that. And like, that's kind of where I started to almost like be exposed to being like, oh, like with skill, practice, and a little bit more articulation, you can really start driving that number higher. And that kind of it kind of just raised the standard of what is possible. And being by those environments kept opening me up. So I would say, like, yeah, like these individuals really helped teach me things along the way. And then I guess, like, imagine a lot of us, I have a lot of external mentors, like books and people that I look up to, and kind of things that I would say it's like, oh, I watch what they've accomplished, and I'm like, oh, there's no reason I can't do the same. And if you can pick up like one little tidbit out of a $20 book and then use it on a sale, it's like, that's crazy ROI exchange, right? And so I would utilize a lot of people that have already been there, done that before me.
Yeah, absolutely. Books are biggest bang for the buck, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And like, what's the biggest personal transformation you experienced through sales? What would you say?
I think in I would say in some ways I'm probably still going through it, but it's like starting to see sales as leadership, right? And so that's kind of there is no top of the mountain on that journey. It's realizing like a little bit of that congruency frame of like how you do anything is how you do everything, as well as like you are as only as good as like your last shot, and putting yourself in the ability is like, hey, if you're going to show up the best version of yourself, you're expecting others to do the same. But that's hard to do day in and day out, and realizing that that is the leadership position that you're putting yourself in, whether you're just in a one-on-one sales call or you start applying that into other arenas. Like that's probably the biggest growth that I've had, as well as I've always been very talkative, but I wasn't always very confident when I was younger. And so I would say that sales has also taught me a lot about more confidence and being able to just be me and be authentic, because I realized that the scripts, the frameworks, they're great, but where I closed the most sales, where like after the script had run out, like we're 45 minutes into objection handling, and it's like now you just have to be with that person and think of things in the moment and be creative and experiment. And it's like that's where you kind of start to realize that's that leadership, that's that growth that you've actually fostered over those years, that you can't fake it. You can only become, you know, what you have been this whole time, in that sense.
And what does your typical day look like right now compared to a few years ago, let's say?
Yeah, that's a great question, because things have changed quite substantially. I used to be full-time sales, 5, 6 calls a day. I was working on multiple offers. I would have an hour of follow-up every day, and I was rinse and repeating and keeping everything, as many balls in play as I could, collecting as many commissions as I could. Now I've kind of moved more into the business owner role, where it's been fun and challenging at the same time, because you're used to having that daily, like, oh, I got a sale, dopamine high kind of thing. Whereas now it's more like slower progress. Results aren't as like frequent because you're building something for the longer term. And so it's been an adjustment. Now my day is more like either meetings internally with the teams, meeting with the developers, and then also starting to do sales for my own business, which has now just been fun because it's easy to be an expert at something that you know passionately. So now it's just, I don't really feel like they're sales calls. It's more just exploration and kind of sharing in that sense as well.
And what habits or routines keep you sharp and consistent?
I mean, I fitness is going to always be a version of that, and so I think that can take a lot of forms for a lot of different people. But in general, like you need to move and move the energy around, because I found that the days that I just sat here for 12 hours straight, they're productive for sure, but getting some movement in there, even if it's just a walk or bouncing on a trampoline or something, can really help kind of like create good healthy vibes on the sales calls, opposed to like that like pent up energy where you're a little too feisty, right? So to me, I got to get all that energy out of my system. So exercise and movement. Probably the other weird hack that I think goes underutilized is staying hydrated. Like, I guess people don't necessarily always realize when you talk like nonstop for 8 hours, like that actually you go through like you gotta protect your weapon, right? And this is your money maker, right? So like I usually have like a water, tea, smoothie, like I have like 6 drinks, but like I think it's underutilized. Like people don't realize their brain doesn't work very well if it's dehydrated, even 10%. So look at that. Jovan's
Yeah,
taking a sip of water right there. You go. So yeah, like little things like that. And then I think something that I've slowly instilled, and again, only human, not perfect, but more of a, I wouldn't necessarily call it a spiritual practice, but I would say more of an energy practice. I do breath work and different types of stuff to just down regulate. It's very easy in this industry to be go, 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 charging, really like proactive and always attacking it. I think well, I'll just speak for myself. For me, it's important to remember that I also need to like shift down and actually calm my nervous system down and ground myself in that way. And that's something that I've realized more recently is just as important, because it's my default pattern to be up and alert. It's harder for me to actually sit without watching TV, without being on my phone, and just be. And so that has had a lot of power as well.
yeah, I'm the same way myself. And how do you stay motivated and focused working remotely? What would you say to that?
Um, I think like the cliche version is know your why, but like to me, it's understanding why you're sitting at the desk for a long period of time. And I think it's also what's coming up for me is like sale. I don't see sales as just like transactional. I see sales as a form of communication. And what I love doing is connecting and communicating with other people. And so I started to frame the motivation as like, how cool is it that I get to sit here in Canada and talk with people all over the world with different cultures, different life experiences, different problems, and explore where we can kind of lead that conversation. And to me, that's pretty energizing and motivating. Combined with the fact that, like I found myself in this industry with an opportunity to make more than I ever thought possible, which is already kind of like I've kind of already blown my own mind. So like I'm motivated just to be here. So like that's kind of where it's fun for me, and I'm really blessed to have that opportunity. So it's easy for me to stay in the hot seat. I think the last part of that answer would be because of the experiences and stuff, I've got to travel. I've got to meet some of these people that are around the other side of the world. And so it makes feeling remote not so remote when you're like, oh, like I actually know that guy. He lives in Australia or he lives in Europe. And you're like, oh, we met up the other day. Like, how crazy is that? But when you realize the world is such a big place, then I don't know. To me, it's no different than probably staying motivated in an office. And amusingly, I think I would really, really struggle having to go into an office given how I have to focus. And so like I get to control my environment here. Like so I feel like I'm more motivated here than I would be in a cubicle anywhere else.
I can bet no one here like or ever likes to work in office. And how do you handle burnout?
Just like crash and burn. No, do it really aggressively. No, burnout is a tricky one. I think like from reflecting on the past and where I have burnt out and where I haven't, it's like it really almost comes back to what you were saying is like what is motivating you. And if you lose sight of why you're doing the action, I think it's easy for you to start burning yourself out. But if you are clear on what the sacrifice is, what the purpose behind the actions are, to me, the times where I've had really clear objectives, I would work harder and not feel burnt out. The times where it's like things aren't going my way, I don't really questioning why I'm even in this project or doing this, that's when you start compounding the negative spiral as well. And So how do you handle burnout? I think you got to manage yourself and back to managing your state and managing, like almost like revert back to what's important, which is usually you're not sleeping, you're not taking care of yourself outside of you just talking and making money or something like that. And so go back to the basics would be like the probably the adage there that would make the most sense.
Yeah. And where do you think high ticket industry is going in 2025?
Great question. Yeah. Like I think everyone is pretty aware that like there is a shift going on and like trust is a lot harder to establish. People are also smart. All of us are pattern recognizing machines. And so after so many years, people have seen a lot of the tactics, strategies, come for a strategy call even. You know what I mean? Like we all know what comes at the end of that, right? So it's starting to realize like I think the industry is shifting more to a place of, I think in a good way, authenticity. Like the people that have genuinely good products, genuine good delivery, are genuine people not trying to just make profit but actually serve, are probably going to be the ones that are starting to thrive faster and cut through all the noise. The other challenge when I say the noise is nowadays there's a bajillion different AI offers, and so it's very noisy in a marketplace. And so I think the role of the sales professional is going to change a little bit, leveraging technology. I'm not against it. I don't fully believe in the next 2 years that sales professionals are going to be replaced entirely by robots, but I do believe there's ways to leverage elements of AI. And so those who learn how to review their calls, other things outside of that like game time moment, probably are going to start growing a lot faster and benefiting in that sense as well.
Hmm. And what's your approach to building, trust fast on a call? Like, what do you do differently?
I mean, I kind of mentioned this multiple times. And I think what like to me, it's being a version of authenticity. Like it's bringing yourself to the table and recognizing like if you want someone to be vulnerable with you, you have to be vulnerable with them. And I don't mean by that I have to tell them everything that's going on in my world, but I do need to show up really empathetic and understanding like this person is stuck. I don't know why. Let's figure out and let's figure out why they're stuck and how they could potentially get out of their own way. Like that is the objective that I show up kind of in that way to build the trust. And when people feel that, it doesn't almost matter what you say. And like that's kind of like an image that I often think about is it's us versus the problem. Very easily it can become like me versus you on a call, and I never want that. The way that I always think about it is like we're standing shoulder to shoulder looking at this giant flaming pit in the hole and being like, what are we going to do about this? And if you can keep that frame of like us versus what you're going through, people see it's like, oh, it's collaborative. He's not trying to transact me or he's not trying to get something out of me. He's genuinely stumped and trying to figure out the problem just like I am. And so I find when people feel that energy, that has always led me in the right direction of actually building a genuine rapport, not just how's the weather and where you're from, like that kind of thing.
Mr. Ali, you have a question.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. My question is, I know you kind of briefly touched on where the industry is headed. Could you talk a little bit about, obviously there's more and more reps coming into the industry every single day. There's closers, setters. What's going to be the thing that differentiates the guys that are getting hired besides the cash collected and the experience? What's that main thing you think that's going to differentiate the guys who land jobs and the guys who go on welfare?
I mean, from what I can see going on recently, it's literally some version of being a professional that is like people have taken for granted that they can just show up, offer hop, kind of like be very like loosey goosey on their approach. Whereas to me, it's like you're showing up, you're doing the research, you're presenting yourself a certain way, you're staying true to your commitments. It's like basic standards apparently are rare these days. So you just being high performer and actually being a high performer is probably going to cut through a lot of this stuff where people are expecting a 10K a month job without doing any work, or they're expecting to go right into the top position when they've never kind of like earned some of their stripes. It's like if you actually just show up with what you have and you're keen to learn and you present yourself as someone that is always being proactive, like I think that's gonna like cut through a lot of this like crap that I'm seeing out there and unfortunate stories of people just doing strange things. And so like that alone, like regardless of your experience, like being a professional and whatever that means to you is going to be like a huge thing. And then I think it's the other piece is also like, I think something that could be very valuable is trying to bring something to the table in that sense. So like if you like, for example, sometimes I will look through someone's funnel website and stuff before I was getting on the phone with the interview, and I would just ask insightful questions to show that I was actually already giving some thought on how I could sell this offer or on what challenges they might actually be experiencing. Like, you're the sales rep, you're good at asking questions. Leverage that skill set in the interview, in the opportunity to get the job. Show them that you're good at it. Show them that you're curious. Show them that you're thinking at a level that is not just like, oh, hey, basic question. You're like, hey, I noticed you did this, this, and this. Why did you do that? And like now you're actually showing them that you're engaged in a level that most people didn't spend 10 minutes doing a few extra minutes and coming up with some insightful questions. Like, that surprises people, but I don't know why, because like, why would you show up unprepared? Like, to me, it's a weird, I get your question, but it's some of the things that I hear are happening, like, just don't make sense to me logically. If someone wants a job that pays that, like, why wouldn't you go all in on it? You know, like basic things.
Yeah, Mr. Santiago, you have a question.
If I could just just expand one last second, I want to take.
This is fun.
Yeah, on note of like, I noticed when I go on interviews and I just ask them like, what does the future look like for me in this company? They're like shocked. They're like, wow, this guy's talking about 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line. They're like, wow, this guy's different, you know?
Yeah.
But what was my question? I'm kind of blanking on my question. I'll pass it off to Santiago and I'll raise my hand.
Well, hey, Ali, I just say like, what does the future look like in your company? To me, it's also expect that nothing is going to be a given. You're like, hey, so what does the future look like in a company? Cool. What would you need me to do in order to make that like easy for you, right? It's like, take it to the next level. And then they're like, oh, wow, this guy's actually thinking of how he can be a cog in the machine, not just here to collect a paycheck as well.
That's exactly what I ask. And I ask about like growth and stuff. And they're like, okay, this guy's here for the long run. So yeah.
It's a vision question, right? Like, you know, it's no different than what we do in discovery calls. That's what I'm saying is, don't forget the job that you're applying for and use your skill set.
Exactly.
That's the first closing call.
There we go. Exactly. 100%.
Mr. Santiago, you have a question.
Yeah, just more than a question. I want to thank William, since he was the one that in January I started talking to everyone on Facebook when I first got into high ticket sales.
Really?
I started talking to anyone that I could, all the groups, and this guy was the only one that could guide me to someone useful. He guided me to Joel Elster of Nomadic Experience.
Yep.
Then I contacted him, and he started being my mentor, as I say. So just to thank you.
Hey, I appreciate that. And I would also say, like, almost combining your guys' questions, Ali and Santiago, it's like, you were one of the gentlemen that, like, you reached out and you weren't like, hey, like, you weren't seeking anything from me. You were literally just looking for advice, or just like, and that's the thing is, I thought that was, you showed me that you were genuinely wanting to get better. And to me, because I've been a sales coach in a lot of capacities, it's like, when I see someone that wants it, I'm willing to invest more time. When I see someone that's just showing up and checking the boxes, I let them check the boxes, right? And so someone like that is like, it's worth it, because I knew I was in your shoes at one point. It's like, I wanted to just learn from anybody because I knew that I could grab and absorb everything that I could. And so, no, I respect that approach for sure.
It really worked. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Nice. Will, what's the most powerful question you ask on a sales call? Or your favorite one, let's say.
Okay. So, okay.
Give us some sauce.
Yeah, this will be fun. Couple ones. There's a couple ones that I guess I'm probably known for. One of the ones that like I like starting conversations with is, what's been the highlight of your day? Because everyone say, hey, how are you? But like, here's the thing is, when I say what's been the highlight of your day, it is a basic question just to get the conversation rolling. But how someone answers that shows me a lot about their personality, because I'm already showing them I want them to focus on the positive. So if they're like, oh, nothing, like, I already kind of get an idea of what type of person they are. If they give me a long answer and a very detailed answer, I have an idea of their personality and how I might have to adapt. So like, that's a weird question that it's a unique question because it slows them down to think, because most people are ready to say, thanks, how are you? And I'm like, oh, like, what's been the highlight of your day? And they're like, oh, and it makes them a little bit more present and calms them down. So like that question I find has like multi-purpose. That's one. And then another one that I used to kind of a variant that I would say off the beginning of the discovery is like, what's the current lay of the land? To me, the way that works is like, it's weird how people kind of understand what I mean by that, even though that doesn't make any sense. But what the goal of that question is almost thinking of like, I want to see what information they're going to offer on how they describe their current circumstance, which leads me to like the third part of my answer is, when you realize that, yes, we're all humans and we've got lots of different types of problems, but if you actually zoom out, context is a lot what's different. There's only so many core problems that people can go through in life, and there's a variety of emotions attached to them. And so when you can take their situation and label it as a circumstance, now you can start moving that circumstance around as a entity, let's say. So when you're like, oh, like, you know, I'm divorced, I have 3 kids, I have 2 dogs to take care of, and a rent payment. It's like, that is your circumstance. The other guy is like, oh, I'm 20 years old, I got some money, and I don't know what to do with my life. That is his circumstance. They're both stuck in different types of concepts, but what you're asking them is, how much longer are you going to let your circumstance dictate like what you're trying to achieve? Because when you can kind of bottle all of their excuses up into just a circumstance, you can then move it out of the way, because you can now hop into another fishbowl at any point in time. All of us know that we can make a rapid change if we choose to, and we're fully aligned and fully committed. So knowing that that's possible at any moment, you can bundle up all of their crap into a thing called, this is your circumstance. Are you going to let this stop you? And when they say no to that or something like that, you now have the power to hold like all of their scenario, just move out of the way, be like, what's really important? What do we need to get past this circumstance? And like, that is like the core of some of the objection handling that I used to do too, is like, it's packaging their situation in a way that we can do something about it, opposed to just be overwhelmed by all of the context that is their current day-to-day life.
Good stuff. And what systems or tools do you rely on to manage your team effectively?
Well, the CRM is going to be the big playground that I design for a lot of teams as well, but largely the CRM is overlooked. All of them have the same features, advantages, and benefits. I'm agnostic to what CRM people prefer. The reality is, though, it's usually chaos in there, and it's not organized. And think about it, assuming all of you guys can drive vehicles, if I was to drop you in a random city and give you the keys to the car, assuming you could drive, you should be able to kind of navigate, even though you don't know where you're going. Why is that? Because there's some basic rules to the road. You understand that cities are laid out in somewhat of a grid structure. You can kind of figure out the difference between a side street, a no street, and a highway. Your brain knows these things. Well, did we end up creating the same ecosystem inside the CRM? Most of the time it's like, oh, we all know to call the damn leads. Which leads to call? Why? What zone of the city am I going to go in today? Like, how do I figure out how to navigate through the CRM? And so when you start to think of like your systems or your CRM like a city, or I like to look at like a garden, it's like, what zone am I watering today? What zone am I going to let fallow for a little bit? Which ones are going to be like blossoming tomorrow? Like, when you can start to bring different attributes into your CRM, that's when the systems start working for you. Just like a city runs pretty smoothly all the time, as well as everything is recycling, everything is like moving its way out all the time, right? And it's efficient. And so that's kind of how we approach the CRM setup, so that people can just do more per day that way.
Mm-hmm. And what's a book or course every closer should go through? What would you say?
Good question. I would say like one of the books I recommend the most that was given to me early on, that probably is a lot of my ethos, is The Go-Giver. It kind of set the right principle on, I think, how sales can be done, and how you can just kind of approach this game is like, just trust that the universe has got you, reciprocity in the sense. But like, if you just show up and give, people who do that usually get what they're looking for in return. If you're always looking to get and receive and consume, you're not going to end up kind of like, you're going to limit yourself somewhere along the lines. That would be one book. I mean, like if you already have the fundamentals of sales in process, then, you know, the more advanced book that I think led to a lot more fun for me in sales was like something like Sleight of Mouth, which is like where you start to learn. To me, that's like a university level textbook if you don't buy the guide, but like it is very deep into NLP, language structures, and psychology. And to me, that was just kind of a unique blend that I had no idea. That's how hypnotists and all these other influential speakers, they use different frame syntax structures to create compelling arguments. And when you start to break down like someone's language patterns into like, oh, they said something that was conditional, which means that I can then do this. It's like, it almost becomes like math, word math, which is kind of a unique way to take your sales skill to the next level. That would be like two-part answer.
Perfect. If someone can drop the link in the chat of the book,
Yeah.
Ali asks,
Can you just say the name of the book again? Because that sounds
So
really cool.
The Goat River was one of them, and then Sleight of Mouth by Robert, I think Dilts is his name. What I would highly recommend though is if you go to Amazon and you type it in, buy the textbook or buy the book. It reads like a textbook though. It's very, very wordy. There's a beginner's guide to the Sleight of Mouth, which is like they pair really well together. I think the beginner's guide's a blue book. So grab that, and it also walks you through the exercises. It kind of breaks it down to become more digestible and applicable to what we do, opposed to just theory. So yeah, those would be kind of the valuable ones. I think the one in the last couple of years that's probably made the biggest difference too in my mindset is 10x is easier than 2x. That's Benjamin Hardy, I believe, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. But that's just a big mindset shift, right? Is like, it's easier for you to actually start thinking at a 10x stream opposed to just trying to double your business. And it's a weird concept because most people want to pursue things linearly, but the exponential gift is easier in a weird way. But that was a huge shift for me.
Nice. And what advice would you give to a 25-year-old that wants to make 10K a month in sales?
It's a good question. I think for me, something that I've recognized is I didn't focus on the number. I did. I definitely had goals. I definitely had financial targets, but I would set it and then I would forget about it. I knew in the back of my head that was the goal, 10K, 15, 20, whatever it was. But after I set the goal, I would start focusing just more on the actions. And I would learn how to become motivated by the actions that I knew were going to get me to that goal, and realize that, like I said earlier, we're all pattern recognizing machines. So it's like, start looking for the patterns, the good ones and the bad ones in yourself. And that's hard to do because you're going to realize you're going to start falling into patterns very quickly, like a verbal crutch. Like, I'm just curious. Like, if every fucking question starts that way, we've all been victim to it, right? And if you don't find your own patterns, you're going to start taking the wrong actions to get you to your goal. But like, that's where I would say is like, set the goal, but then focus on the actions. And what I mean by that more on a micro level or a daily level is there's no way you can change 10 things simultaneously. So don't try and do it. Like, so when someone, and this is a mistake I used to make all the time when I was starting to coach, is I would do a call review for someone and I would give them like 15, 16 different things to focus on. And I'm like, and then I'd realize that it sounded really good when I was going over it, but then the next day, like, they did none of them because they were just overwhelmed with all the stuff that I dropped. All of the points were valid, don't get me wrong. So what I then started to do is like, here's the call review. You're going to write 2 or 3 changes on a Post-it note that you're going to make for the next day or 2. And until you make those changes, don't worry about the next ones. And I used to start doing like, cool, today, anytime there's an objection, I'm going to teach myself to lean back and relax. Anytime someone says I'm thinking about it, I'm going to use this new frame today. And I would literally almost like be waiting for that opportunity to come to practice those couple things. And once I practiced them and I felt like I was like, that went over way smoother, I got that, sweet, new little objective. And I would usually, like, if you were to be a bird on my shoulder, it's like you would see, I'd have 2 or 3 objectives of things I was trying out and experimenting with at a time. And I would just keep rinsing and repeating. And that's how I started to stack a lot more wins because I wasn't trying to make 12 changes simultaneously. I was trying to make 2, and I would do it for the next 48 hours. And once I made those 2, then I'd make another 2. So by the end of the week, I'd actually made about 10 changes, but I did it in a very methodical way that makes it a little bit more like a game. Because when you ask how I stay motivated, I also gamify a lot of things because it gets boring just having a similar conversation. So then I'm like, I'm literally waiting for the moment so someone gives me this new objection. I'm like, this is something I've been wanting to practice, but like we can't tell people what objection to give us. So we have to wait for it to show up, right? And so little things like that can go a long way, is just like be very intentional about the 2 or 3 changes you're trying to make, and those will start compounding a lot faster.
Nice stuff. And if you were to go back in time, start all over again, like what's the first thing you would do to set yourself for success?
I've thought about this a lot. I mean, one of the things that I would have done very differently is, I guess straight up, is invest a lot more of my money. Like I started to make more money than I thought was possible, like because I was making 3K, now I'm making 10K. And that's the thing, is I didn't go on like frivolous parties and just vendors and stuff like that, but I just started living my life, traveling a little bit more, doing more stuff. But at the time I was thinking a little bit more short term, and I wasn't being like, hey, like I'm making more than I have, I should be putting 5K a month into something that is going to start feeding me, because what we know in sales is what goes up kind of comes down. So having those slower periods, having some buffer that was producing cash flow or some base pay or from something from a different vehicle would have saved me from maybe some of those burnouts or lower self thoughts or all this stuff that probably got me in a bit of a valley, because I would have been like, oh, that's good, I've got like whatever 50K engine just like churning away over there. It's like I didn't think to create that for myself long term. That would have been one big thing in the, like, had I started over again, immediately would have started doing that as soon as I started making more than I needed. It was like I would have just put a lot more away, and like that was a learning experience. I also screwed up a lot with taxes. Don't forget to save for those when you're being paid commission only. You don't get like McDonald's, they take taxes off. Here, you have to figure out that yourself. So I learned a lot of valuable lessons early on that I didn't know better. I think also if I was starting over again, the biggest thing, and I was lucky, but it's your environment. Like it's very hard to perform in a crap environment. So go find environments that are going to pull you up. Like it is that classic cliche thing, like you should be the stupidest person in the room kind of concept, or if you're not, you're in the wrong room. Like that thing is true. Like when I went from being rewarded at the top in my little cluster at 20%, and then I went into sales sniper land where people were closing 40, 50, 60%, I was like, oh, cool. And guess what? Over a year and a half, I was one of those people, right? And then I should have kept finding bigger and bigger environments, but like I did stay a long time at like a high level where I was then coaching and helping other people too. So like, pros and cons to the journey, and I wouldn't change anything, but to me, if you really want to take it as far as you can go, is keep finding bigger and harder and more challenging environments, because we are creatures of adaptation, and you will find a way to thrive, usually, more often than not. So yeah.
Yeah, crazy. I was listening to Jim Rohn yesterday, and he said number one actually key or trait of success is environment, which is very, very interesting.
A nice little analogy that a personal trainer gave me a while back is he's like, if you go to the store and buy the freshest ingredients, the most organic stuff, and the beautiful, beautiful stuff, but then the pan you're cooking it in hasn't been cleaned in years and crappy, it doesn't matter what lovely ingredients you throw in there, you're not going to be able to create some Michelin star masterpiece. Whereas if you have a clean slate, a healthy environment, you can get away with a variety of different ingredients to still make something taste delicious, right? And so you're absolutely right. Like figure out, is your environment serving you? Because it's going to be the biggest thing that's going to be like the wind in your sails, or literally you're sitting there in irons as well.
Right. Guys, raise your hand if you have any questions. Use this chance wisely. Mr. Ali.
Yeah, sorry guys. I have a lot of questions. I'm just I like what William is saying. William, I have a question. So I understand everything you're saying about the self-investment, getting better yourself, and I think obviously that's if you don't have that, then you're not really destined for greatness, right? But one thing that I've personally also kind of, because I'm newer in the space, I'm like less than a year in, and one thing that I struggled with in the beginning is I was just so like happy to be on an offer. I wasn't really vetting these offers, and I understand that there should be a balance between improving myself, but also making sure I'm not on like some bullshit offer, right? Or so, and I've, Philip knows about this. I've been in talks with him. Like sometimes I'll go on an offer. I found out it's complete BS what they told me, and then I'm kind of like this offer hopper because I'm just being constantly like promised things and lied to, right? So like, how do you, I guess, vet offers? Like, what kind of questions do you look for, and how do you balance improving yourself, but also being confident enough to say, no, this is what I want, this is how it has to be, blah blah blah. I hope that question makes sense, and I'm not just rambling.
Okay, 2 parts. How do you vet offers? It's a tricky one, because oftentimes they're going to be a little bit more guarded about some of the deeper metrics that are probably going to help you evaluate that a little bit better. I think trying to understand, it's like, to me, it's like you're looking at a river or an ocean and you're trying to understand it, right? And it's like, because you don't know what's underneath the water. So to me, you're trying to understand how fast is this flowing, i.e., how many leads are coming in on a regular basis? Like, how much opportunity can we actually play with? Because like, if there's a trickle of leads, even if you're the best closer, it's going to be hard for you to accelerate your own journey. So it's like and then how many lead sources? Because we know Facebook ads screws up all the time. So it's like, if they're only on Facebook ads, that could be potentially a dependency you do not want. But if they have organic and paid, that's great, right? Then you're also looking at what is the historical performance of the people there, right? That's also helpful. But also, the ego can get in the way there. It's like, well, if you consciously know you're probably better than half the team, then it's like, well, those results aren't as important. But it also shows like how consistent they can produce results as a company. I think then as I went deeper into the journey, it's like, I would ask more questions, because what they do want to talk about, the influencer or the business owner, is their product. And so I would really want to understand, how does the delivery journey work? When do clients get wins? What type of testimonials do they give? Because then I can understand the benefit of not only what I'm selling and could I see myself selling that, but also just understanding, like, if I'm going to sell and create more business for this business, I want to make sure that those people are getting what I'm going to tell them they're going to get, right? And so if there's an incongruence between what you're selling on the front lines and what's being delivered and the results that should be possible, that's something that you're going to want to investigate too. I think also questions about understanding the values of the company. There's so many new companies out there that don't even necessarily know their mission statement, their values, like the basic things that bigger companies have. Like, those are elements that's like, it will help you tell how the founder or the CEO is approaching the business, and do they even have quarterly goals? Do they have bigger projections? Like, you can kind of start vetting it out just by pulling back shades of gray. The second part of your question, though, is interesting because, okay, you're not as experienced. Maybe you can't have carte blanche opportunities and get on the biggest and greatest team right now. That's okay. Are there some environments that you could create opportunity for yourself? So like, what I mean by that is, there are big companies that have very big sales teams. That might work well for you to get your foot in the door, but you're gonna have to work very hard to climb the ladder within the company. But that experience and exposure and high volume might be great. Like, I think there's that committed coaches offer that has like 100 different million reps on it. But I imagine a lot of them are getting a lot of experience, a lot of reps, and that can be great for some people. The other opportunities are when you really believe in the founder and the mission, but you know the lead flow is not there. To me, it's don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I've taken up some incredible things that have made me some good money, not necessarily immediately, but because I stuck it out for a little bit and figured out a few things and was innovative. I ended up being the only closer on that offer because I was replacing the business owner, and that ended up serving me very well. So like, there are different ways to get better. It's figuring also out what environments do you do better at. Some people are more independent and like to be kind of, just give me the leads, let me figure out my own thing and do it and experiment. Other people like that structured environment where there are 100 other people doing the same thing, and they're going to benefit more from the structure and that kind of clarity as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, William.
Cool.
All right, I have one. Okay, so this question is a little bit sort of long. I hope we have a little bit of time.
Let's go.
For that. Okay, so I just I want to get your opinion and sort of like how you deal with a prospect. If you can give us like an overview or like a framework, and like what you do in a sales call, sort of like how you get the pay, and just like a quick overview, just to get a little bit an idea about your style, because I like to learn a little bit from everybody.
Sure. I'm curious, before I answer the question, like what are you looking for in the answer? So is it more process based? Is it more style?
Exactly, the
Like,
process.
you're like
The
process.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And is it a specific type of prospect, or just in general you're wondering how I flow?
How you flow. Like
Okay.
just yeah. Sorry if like my question is
No,
kind of vague.
I'm allowed to clarify. I'm kind of showing you what I do anyway. Like, here's the reality is I see sales conversations very much like there's a big energy component to me. So like initially, it's almost like if think about like a you go to an amusement park, you guys get on a ride. What happens? The thingy closes and then the vehicle leaves the station, right?
Yeah.
Boom. That's how I see the sales call starting. It's like, great, everyone arrived, things, harnesses are on, and then it leaves. Does it usually zip right off? No. It starts usually like climbing something and slowly accelerating. Great. What is it? What are they trying to do? They're building anticipation. They're building a little excitement, maybe a little bit of fear for people. That's kind of my same approach. Initially, I want someone to come into the conversation, and immediately I need them to make sure that they're present in this conversation. Think about it. When you get on the roller coaster, are you thinking about your shopping list? No, you're thinking about what's about to come in literally the next few minutes. That's what needs to happen in the sales conversation. So from an energy point of view, in the first like two minutes, I'm making sure that person on the other side is focused and present on what we're talking about right here and now. Because if I don't have that, it's gonna be very hard to take them around crazy corners and do a bunch of type of stuff after that. So like to me, I'm very mindful of like, think about the question I asked. What's been the highlight of your day? I'm getting these people to actually like slow down, stop whatever they're doing over there and answer my question in a different way. From there, once the vehicle's left the station, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. So like on your offer, you're gonna have different types of avatars. You're gonna have different types of people that have different types of pain points. It's not that I need to type somebody, but I need to figure out on like the XY Cartesian plane, where is someone on this map? Are they an extreme personality that just wants me to pitch them? Are they someone that's going to be a lot like figure out who you're dealing with, because that's going to change their line of questioning, as well as I need to understand their circumstance. So it's like, what avatar are they and what is their core problem? That's where I'm going to kind of start. Once I get a core problem, now I'm thinking about like different, like the way that I used to coach this is, if you've ever played like a game and you can either like a board game, you can move up, down, left, or right. That's kind of how I kind of see it, is like, if I'm on this board game piece, like second move, I have 4 different directions I can go. So if I now know their core problem, I can either expand the problem, go north, and I could be like, oh, like how is this affecting you over time, right? I can go underneath the problem, being like, oh, how is this showing up for you? Like, what caused you to have this problem, right? That side. So I can go like, what's underneath that problem? Or I can go left or right, which would be like, where else in this does this affect you personally? Or what other problems come with that one problem? So in my brain, I'm just kind of like deciding, almost like a board game, to move up, down, left, right. And I'm almost navigating the board game that way, where it's like, am I understanding the root of the problem? Am I understanding what happens when the problem gets bigger? Am I figuring out how other problems can create, like side problems? Like if this is a problem, then that's going to be another problem. Or am I trying to figure out, hey, like who else is affected by this problem? Move laterally. So like when you think about that, you now have 4 different ways to expand a problem to get into something that's more meatier. And if you think about a board game, your goal is to maneuver through the board game. That's how I'm thinking about it, is like, what direction can I take this conversation that's going to lead deeper into the person's circumstance so that it can truly understand it? Because then when you actually start talking about those 4 directions, and you can keep doing them, rinse and repeat. You can keep going all 4 directions. So if you ever run out of, you should never be able to run out of problems because you can always go one of 4 directions. And that's kind of gives me the liberty to start stacking problems together and tying them into little packages. And then from there, it's about figuring out what are they, like, where are they trying to go, right? Like that's how I kind of get the ball going and how I start the first 5-10 minutes of the call. And then from there, it's the basic like framework. I'm no different than anyone else. I do follow a framework because it's a logical conversation, unfolding that. I would say though, in the first 5 minutes of the call, if you haven't figured out why now, that is a problem. Because like, think about it. If you and I don't get on the phone and we're total strangers to each other, if in 5 minutes, neither of us really know why we're here and what we're talking about, why would we keep talking? So like your job as the leader of the conversation is to figure out why now. Who gives a shit about this problem and why do they think it's important? I don't need to agree with them or disagree with them. I need to understand why they are talking to me here in this time and moment. And that could be, oh, I just recently discovered your ad. But I'm like, yeah, but there's millions of ads out there. Why'd you book this call and why now? Right? So like I'm really charging a lot of my angle questions off the first 5-10 minutes to why now. Because think about it, if you don't know why now, why you keep talking? So like that would be kind of the, how does that serve as a starting point for you?
Very good.
Play with that. You might need to re-listen to that 4-question thing. I usually have a diagram, but if you listen to that again, you'll understand like there's 4 different directions I take pretty much. That's how I used to thread questions together very easily. I'm like, do I want to figure out what's underneath this? Do I want to figure out what amplifies it? Do I want to figure out what contributes to this or where else it's affected? Or do I want to see if it's tied to another problem? Like it gives me, because so many times when I was coaching sales reps, they're like, oh, I don't know where to go after I got the first problem. I'm like, there's your answer. Choose 4 different directions and ask a question that's in alignment with the direction.
Yeah. Very valuable. Appreciate it, man.
Of course. Sweet.
Yeah.
Good question.
Do we have any other questions, guys? Or you know everything already?
Pretty much.
Mr. Will, where can people reach out and see your service and what you have been cooking these days?
So yeah, right now we've got probably social media is the easier one. William Autumns on Instagram and Facebook. Our website is volvenow.com. We are in the process of launching the software, which will be exciting. But in the meantime, like we do lost revenue audits, CRM infrastructure, automation, all that fun stuff. So happy to explore any of those topics with anyone that wants to play.
Nice. This will be posted on YouTube.
Sweet.
So guys, all the links will be in the bio. If you have any questions in the meantime, send us a DM.
Woo.
Enjoy your weekend. Cheers.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Till next time.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.